You're listening to KZOM, Oleander Public Radio. Hey folks, I'm DB Spitzer, and this is the People's Guide to the Cthulhu Mythos. We're talking cosmic horror, strange fiction. Turn down the lights, turn up the static, it's time to get weird. If you like what you hear and you want to help keep the show going, check out pgttcm.com and check out the show's store. Thank you.
Recording by Tony Addison. The Hanging Stranger by Philip K. Dick. Ed had always been a practical man. When he saw something was wrong, he tried to correct it. Then, one day, he saw it hanging in the town square. 5 o'clock. Ed Loyce washed up, tossed on his hat and coat, got his car out, and headed across town towards his TV sales store. He was tired. His back and shoulders ached from digging dirt out of the basement and wheeling it into the backyard. But for a 40-year-old man, he had done okay. Jane could get a new vase with the money he had saved, and he liked the idea of repairing the foundations himself. It was getting dark. The setting sun cast long rays over the scurrying commuters, tired and grim-faced women loaded down with bundles and packages, students swarming home from the university, mixing with clerks and businessmen and drab secretaries. He stopped his Packard for a red light and then started it up again. The store had been open without him. He'd arrived just in time to spell the help for dinner, go over the records of the day, maybe even close a couple of sales himself. He drove slowly past the small square of green in the centre of the street, the town park. There were no parking places in front of Loyce TV Sales and Service. He cursed under his breath and swung the car in a U-turn. Again, he passed the little square of green with its lonely drinking fountain and bench and single lamppost. From the lamppost something was hanging. A shapeless dark bundle swinging a little with the wind, like a dummy of some sort. Loyce rolled down his window and peered out. What the hell was it? A display of some kind? Sometimes the Chamber of Commerce put up displays in the square. Again he made a U-turn and brought his car around. He passed the park and concentrated on the dark bundle. It wasn't a dummy, and if it was a display, it was a strange kind. The hackles on his neck rose, and he swallowed uneasily. Sweat slid out on his face and hands. It was a body. A human body. "Look at it!" Loyce snapped. "Come on out here!" Don Ferguson came slowly out of the store, buttoning his pinstripe coat with dignity. "This is a big deal, Ed. I can't just leave the guy standing there." "See it?" Ed pointed into the gathering gloom. The lamppost jutted up against the sky, the post and the bundle swinging from it. "There it is. How the hell long has it been there?" His voice rose excitedly. "What's wrong with everybody? They just walk on past." Don Ferguson lit a cigarette slowly. "Take it easy, old man. There must be a good reason or it wouldn't be there." "A reason? What kind of a reason?" Ferguson shrugged. "Like the time the Traffic Safety Council put that wrecked Buick there. Some sort of civic thing. How would I know?" Jack Potter from the shoe shop joined them. "What's up, boys?" "There's a body hanging from the lamppost," Loyce said. "I'm going to call the cops." "They must know about it," Potter said, "or otherwise it wouldn't be there." "I got to get back in." Ferguson headed back into the store. Business before pleasure. Loyce began to get hysterical. You see it? You see it hanging there? A man's body. A dead man. Sure, Ed. I saw it this afternoon when I went out for coffee. You mean it's been there all afternoon? Sure. What's the matter? Potter glanced at his watch. Have to run. See you later, Ed. Potter hurried off, joining the flow of people moving along the sidewalk. Men and women passing by the park. A few glanced up curiously at the dark bundle and then went on. Nobody stopped. Nobody paid any attention. I'm going nuts, Loyce whispered. He made his way to the curb and crossed out into traffic among the cars. Horns honked angrily at him. He gained the curb and stepped up onto the little square of green. The man had been middle-aged. His clothing was ripped and torn, a grey suit splashed and caked with dried mud. A stranger. Loyce had never seen him before. Not a local man. His face was partly turned away, and in the evening wind he spun a little, turning gently, silently. His skin was gouged and cut. Red gashes, deep scratches of congealed blood. A pair of steel-rimmed glasses hung from one ear, dangling foolishly. His eyes bulged. His mouth was open, tongue thick and ugly blue. For heaven's sake, Loyce muttered, sickened. He pushed down his nausea and made his way back to the sidewalk. He was shaking all over with revulsion and fear. Why? Who was the man? Why was he hanging there? What did it mean? And why didn't anybody notice? He bumped into a small man hurrying along the sidewalk. Watch it, the man grated. Oh, it's you, Ed. Ed nodded dazedly. Hello, Jenkins. What's the matter? The stationery clerk caught Ed's arm. You look sick. The body. There in the park. Sure, Ed. Jenkins led him into the alcove of Loyce TV Sales and Service. Take it easy. Margaret Henderson from the jewelry store joined them. Something wrong? Ed's not feeling well. Loyce yanked himself free. How can you stand here? Don't you see it, for God's sake? What's he talking about? Margaret asked nervously. The body, Ed shouted. The body hanging up there. More people collected. Is he sick? It's Ed Loyce. You okay, Ed? The body! Loyce screamed, struggling to get past them. Hands caught at him. He tore loose. Let me go. The police. Get the police. Ed. Better get a doctor. He must be sick. Or drunk. Loyce fought his way through the people. He stumbled and half fell. Through a blur, he saw rows of faces, curious, concerned, anxious. Men and women halting to see what the disturbance was. He fought past them towards his store. He could see Ferguson inside talking to a man, showing him an Emerson TV set. Pete Foley in the back at the service counter, setting up a new Philco. Loyce shouted at them frantically. His voice was lost in the roar of traffic and the murmur around him. Do something, he screamed. Don't stand there. Do something. Something's wrong. Something's happened. Things are going on. The crowd melted respectfully for the two heavy-set cops moving efficiently toward Loyce. Name? The cop with the notebook murmured. Loyce. He mopped his forehead wearily. Edward C. Loyce. Listen to me. Back there. Address? The cop demanded. The police car moved swiftly through traffic, shooting among the cars and buses. Loyce sagged against the seat, exhausted and confused. He took a deep, shuddering breath. 1368 Hurst Road. That's here in Pikeville. That's right. Loyce pulled himself up with a violent effort. Listen to me. Back there in the square, hanging from the lamppost. Where were you today? The cop behind the wheel demanded. Where? Loyce echoed. You weren't in your shop, were you? No. He shook his head. No, I was home, down in the basement. In the basement? Digging. A new foundation. Getting out the dirt to pour a cement frame. Why? What has that to do with? Was anybody else down there with you? No. My wife was downtown. My kids were at school. Loyce looked from one heavy-set cop to the other. Hope flicked across his face. Wild hope. You mean because I was down there I missed the explanation? I didn't get in on it, like everybody else. After a pause, the cop with the notebook said, That's right. You missed the explanation. Then it's official. The body, it's supposed to be hanging there. It's supposed to be hanging there. For everybody to see. Ed Loyce grinned weakly. Good Lord. I guess I sort of went off the deep end. I thought maybe something had happened, you know. Something like the Ku Klux Klan. Some kind of violence. Communists or fascists taking over. He wiped his face with his breast pocket handkerchief, his hands shaking. I'm glad to know it's on the level. It's on the level. The police car was getting near the Hall of Justice. The sun had set. The streets were gloomy and dark. The lights had not yet come on. I feel better, Loyce said. I was pretty excited there for a minute. I guess I got all stirred up. Now that I understand there's no need to take me in, is there? The two cops said nothing. I should be back at my store. The boys haven't had dinner. I'm all right now. No more trouble. Is there any need of... This won't take long, the cop behind the wheel interrupted. A short process. Only a few minutes. I hope it's short, Loyce muttered. The car slowed down for a stoplight. I guess I sort of disturbed the peace. Funny getting excited like that and... Loyce yanked the door open. He sprawled out into the street and rolled to his feet. Cars were moving all around him, gaining speed as the light changed. Loyce leaped onto the curb and raced among the people, burrowing into the swarming crowds. Behind him he heard sounds, shouts, people running. They weren't cops. He had realized that right away. He knew every cop in Pikeville. A man couldn't own a store, operate a business in a small town for 25 years without getting to know all the cops. They weren't cops, and there hadn't been any explanation. Potter, Ferguson, Jenkins, none of them knew why it was there. They didn't know, and they didn't care. That was the strange part. Loyce ducked into a hardware store. He raced toward the back, past the startled clerks and customers into the shipping room and through the back door. He tripped over a garbage can and ran up a flight of concrete steps. He climbed over a fence and jumped down on the other side, gasping and panting. There was no sound behind him. He had got away. He was at the entrance of an alley, dark and strewn with boards and ruined boxes and tires. He could see the street at the far end. A street light wavered and came on. Men and women, stores, neon signs, cars, and to his right, the police station. He was close, terribly close. Past the loading platform of a grocery store rose the white concrete side of the Hall of Justice. Barred windows, the police antenna, a great concrete wall rising up in the darkness. A bad place for him to be near. He was too close. He had to keep moving, get farther away from them. Them? Loyce moved cautiously down the alley. Beyond the police station was the city hall, the old-fashioned yellow structure of wood and gilded brass and broad cement steps. He could see the endless rows of offices, dark windows, the cedars and beds of flowers on each side of the entrance, and something else. Above the City Hall was a patch of darkness, a cone of gloom, denser than the surrounding night, a prism of black that spread out and was lost into the sky. He listened. Good God, he could hear something that made him struggle frantically to close his ears, his mind to shut out the sound, a buzzing, a distant muted hum, like a great swarm of bees. Lois gazed up, rigid with horror. The splotch of darkness hanging over the City Hall, darkness so thick it seemed almost solid. In the vortex something moved, flickering shapes, things descending from the sky, pausing momentarily above the City Hall, fluttering over it in a dense swarm, and then dropping silently onto the roof. Shapes, fluttering shapes from the sky, from the crack of darkness that hung above him. He was seeing them. For a long time Lois watched, crouched behind a sagging fence in a pool of scummy water. They were landing, coming down in groups, landing on the roof of the City Hall and disappearing inside. They had wings, like giant insects of some kind. They flew and fluttered and came to rest, and then crawled crab fashion sideways across the roof and into the building. He was sickened and fascinated. Cold night wind blew around him and he shuddered. He was tired, dazed with shock. On the front steps of the City Hall were men standing here and there, groups of men coming out of the building and halting for a moment before going on. Were there more of them? It didn't seem possible. What he saw descending from the black chasm weren't men. They were alien, from some other world, some other dimension, sliding through this slit, this break in the shell of the universe, entering through this gap, winged insects from another realm of being. On the steps of the City Hall, a group of men broke up. A few moved toward a waiting car. One of the remaining shapes started to re-enter the City Hall. It changed its mind and turned to follow the others. Lois closed his eyes in horror. His senses reeled. He hung on tight, clutching at the sagging fence. The shape, the man shape, had abruptly fluttered up and flapped after the others. It flew to the sidewalk and came to rest among them. Pseudo-men, imitation men, insects with ability to disguise themselves as men, like other insects familiar to Earth, protective coloration, mimicry. Lois pulled himself away. He got slowly to his feet. It was night. The alley was totally dark. But maybe they could see in the dark. Maybe darkness made no difference to them. He left the alley cautiously and moved out onto the street. Men and women flowed past, but not so many now. At the bus stops stood waiting groups. A huge bus lumbered along the street, its lights flashing in the evening gloom. Lois moved forward. He pushed his way among those waiting, and when the bus halted, he boarded it and took a seat in the rear by the door. A moment later, the bus moved into life and rumbled down the street. Lois relaxed a little. He studied the people around him. Dull, tired faces, people going home from work, quite ordinary faces. None of them paid any attention to him. All sat quietly, sunk down in their seats, jiggling with the motion of the bus. The man sitting next to him unfolded a newspaper. He began to read the sports section, his lips moving. An ordinary man. Blue suit, tie, a businessman or a salesman, on his way home to his wife and family. Across the aisle a young woman, perhaps 20, dark eyes and hair, a package on her lap, nylons and heels, red coat and white Angora sweater, gazing absently ahead of her. A high school boy in jeans and black jacket. A great triple-chinned woman with an immense shopping bag loaded with packages and parcels, her thick face dim with weariness. Ordinary people, the kind that rode the bus every evening, going home to their families, to dinner. Going home with their minds dead, controlled, filmed over with the mask of an alien being that had appeared and taken possession of them, their town, their lives, himself too, except that he happened to be deep in his cellar instead of in the store. Somehow he had been overlooked, they had missed him. Their control wasn't perfect, foolproof. Maybe there were others. Hope flickered in Loyce. They weren't omnipotent. They had made a mistake, not got control of him. Their net, their field of control had passed over him. He had emerged from his cellar as he had gone down. Apparently their power zone was limited. A few seats down the aisle, a man was watching him. Loyce broke off his chain of thought. A slender man with dark hair and a small moustache, well-dressed, brown suit and shiny shoes, a book between his small hands. He was watching Loyce, studying him intently. He turned quickly away. Loyce tensed. One of them, or another they had missed. The man was watching him again. Small dark eyes, alive and clever, shrewd. A man too shrewd for them, or one of the things itself, an alien insect from beyond. The bus halted. An elderly man got on slowly and dropped his token into the box. He moved down the aisle and took a seat opposite Loyce. The elderly man caught the sharp-eyed man's gaze. For a split second something passed between them, a look rich with meaning. Loyce got to his feet. The bus was moving. He ran to the door, one step down into the well. He yanked the emergency door release. The rubber door swung open. "Hey!" the driver shouted, jamming on the brakes. "What the hell?" Loyce squirmed through. The bus was slowing down. Houses on all sides. A residential district. Lawns and tall apartment buildings. Behind him, the bright-eyed man had leapt up. The elderly man was also on his feet. They were coming after him. Loyce leaped. He hit the pavement with terrific force and rolled against the curb. Pain lapped over him. Pain and a vast tide of blackness. Desperately he fought it off. He struggled to his knees and then slid down again. The bus had stopped. People were getting off. Loyce groped around. His fingers closed over something, a rock lying in the gutter. He crawled to his feet, grunting with pain. A shape loomed before him. A man, the bright-eyed man with the book. Loyce kicked. The man gasped and fell. Loyce brought the rock down. The man screamed and tried to roll away. "Stop! For God's sake, listen!" He struck again. A hideous crunching sound. The man's voice cut off and dissolved in a bubbling wail. Loyce scrambled up and back. The others were there now, all around him. He ran awkwardly down the sidewalk, up a driveway. None of them followed him. They had stopped and were bending over the inert body of the man with the book, the bright-eyed man who had come after him. Had he made a mistake? But it was too late to worry about that. He had to get out, away from them, out of Pikeville, beyond the crack of darkness, the rent between their world and his. "Ed!" Janet Loyce backed away nervously. "What is it? What?" Ed Loyce slammed the door behind him and came into the living room. "Pull down the shades, quick!" Janet moved toward the window. "But—" "Do as I say. Who else is here besides you?" "Nobody. Just the twins. They're upstairs in their room. What's happened? You look so strange. Why are you home?" Ed locked the front door. He prowled around the house, into the kitchen. From the drawer under the sink, he slid out the big butcher knife and ran his finger along it, sharp, plenty sharp. He returned to the living room. "Listen to me," he said. "I don't have much time. They know I escaped, and they'll be looking for me." "Escaped?" Janet's face twisted with bewilderment and fear. "Who?" "The town has been taken over. They're in control. I've got it pretty well figured out. They started at the top, at the City Hall and Police Department. What they did with the real humans, they—" "What are you talking about?" "We've been invaded. From some other universe, some other dimension. They're insects, mimicry, and more. Power to control minds. Your mind." "My mind?" "Their entrance is here, in Pikeville. They've taken over all of you, the whole town except me. We're up against an incredibly powerful enemy, but they have their limitations. That's our hope. They're limited. They can make mistakes." Janet shook her head. "I don't understand, Ed. You must be insane." "Insane? No. Just lucky. If I hadn't been down in the basement, I'd be like all the rest of you." Lois peered out the window. "But I can't stand here talking. Get your coat." "My coat?" "We're getting out of here. Out of Pikeville. We've got to get help. Fight this thing. They can be beaten. They're not infallible. It's going to be close. But we may make it if we hurry. Come on." He grabbed her arm roughly. "Get your coat and call the twins. We're all leaving. Don't stop to pack. There's no time for that." White-faced, his wife moved toward the closet and got down her coat. "Where are we going?" Ed pulled open the desk drawer and spilled the contents out onto the floor. He grabbed up a road map and spread it open. "They'll have the highway covered, of course, but there's a back road to Oak Grove. I got onto it once. It's practically abandoned. Maybe they'll forget about it." "The old ranch road? Good Lord, it's completely closed. Nobody's supposed to drive over it." "I know." Ed thrust the map grimly into his coat. "That's our best chance. Now call down the twins and let's get going. The car is full of gas, isn't it?" Janet was dazed. "The Chevy? I had it filled up yesterday afternoon." Janet moved towards the stairs. "Ed, Call the twins!" Ed unlocked the front door and peered out. Nothing stirred. No sign of life. All right so far. "Come on downstairs," Janet called in a wavering voice. "We're going out for a while." "Now?" Tommy's voice came. "Hurry up," Ed barked. "Get down here, both of you." Tommy appeared at the top of the stairs. "I was doing my homework. We're starting fractions. Miss Parker says if we don't get this done—" "You can forget about fractions." Ed grabbed his son as he came down the stairs and propelled him toward the door. "Where's Jim?" "He's coming." Jim started slowly down the stairs. "What's up, Dad?" "We're going for a ride." "A ride? Where?" Ed turned to Janet. "We'll leave the lights on and the TV set. Go turn it on." He pushed her toward the set. "So they'll think we're still—" He heard the buzz and dropped instantly, the long butcher knife out. Sickened, he saw it coming down the stairs at him, wings a blur of motion as it aimed itself. It still bore a vague resemblance to Jimmy. It was small, a baby one, a brief glimpse, the thing hurtling at him. Cold, multi-lensed, inhuman eyes, wings, body still clothed in yellow t-shirt and jeans, the mimic outline still stamped on it. A strange half-turn of its body as it reached him. What was it doing? A stinger. Lois stabbed wildly at it. It retreated, buzzing frantically. Lois rolled and crawled toward the door. Tommy and Janet stood still as statues, faces blank. Watching without expression, Lois stabbed again. This time the knife connected. The thing shrieked and faltered. It bounced against the wall and fluttered down. Something lapped through his mind. A wall of force, energy, an alien mind probing into him. He was suddenly paralyzed. The mind entered his own, touched against him briefly, shockingly, an utterly alien presence settling over him, and then it flickered out as the thing collapsed in a broken heap on the rug. It was dead. He turned it over with his foot. It was an insect, a fly of some kind. Yellow t-shirt, jeans. His son Jimmy. He closed his mind tight. It was too late to think about that. Savagely, he scooped up his knife and headed toward the door. Janet and Tommy stood stone still, neither of them moving. The car was out. He'd never get through. They'd be waiting for him. It was 10 miles on foot. 10 long miles over rough ground, gullies and open fields, and hills of uncut forest. He'd have to go alone. Lois opened the door. For a brief second he looked back at his wife and son. Then he slammed the door behind him and raced down the porch steps. A moment later he was on his way, hurrying swiftly through the darkness toward the edge of town. The early morning sunlight was blinding. Lois halted, gasping for breath, swaying back and forth. Sweat ran down in his eyes. His clothing was torn, shredded by the brush and thorns through which he had crawled. 10 miles, on his hands and knees, crawling, creeping through the night. His shoes were mud-caked. He was scratched and limping, utterly exhausted. But ahead of him lay Oak Grove. He took a deep breath and started down the hill. Twice he stumbled and fell, picking himself up and trudging on. His ears rang. Everything receded and wavered, but he was there. He had got out, away from Pikeville. A farmer in a field gaped at him. From a house, a young woman watched in wonder. Lois reached the road and turned onto it. Ahead of him was a gasoline station and a drive-in. A couple of trucks, some chickens pecking in the dirt, a dog tied with a string. The white-clad attendant watched suspiciously as he dragged himself up to the station. "Thank God!" He caught hold of the wall. "I didn't think I was going to make it. They followed me most of the way. I could hear them buzzing and flitting around behind me." "What happened?" the attendant demanded. "You in a wreck? A hold-up?" Lois shook his head wearily. "They had the whole town, the city hall and the police station. They hung a man from the lamppost. That was the first thing I saw. They've got all the roads blocked. I saw them hovering over the cars coming in. About 4 this morning I got beyond them. I knew it right away. I could feel them leave. And then the sun came up." The attendant licked his lip nervously. "You're out of your head. I'd better get a doctor." "Get me into Oak Grove," Lois gasped. He sank down on the gravel. "We've got to get started cleaning them out. Got to get started right away." They kept a tape recorder going all the time he talked. When he had finished, the commissioner snapped off the recorder and got to his feet. He stood for a moment deep in thought. Finally he got out his cigarettes and lit up slowly, a frown on his beefy face. "You don't believe me," Lois said. The commissioner offered him a cigarette. Lois pushed it impatiently away. "Suit yourself." The commissioner moved over to the window and stood for a time looking out at the town of Oak Grove. "I believe you," he said abruptly. Lois sagged. "Thank God." "So you got away?" The commissioner shook his head. "You were down in your cellar instead of at work. A freak chance. 1 in a million." Lois sipped some of the black coffee they had brought him. "I have a theory," he murmured. "What is it?" "About them. Who they are. They take over one area at a time, starting at the top, the highest level of authority, working down from there in a widening circle. When they're firmly in control, they go on to the next town. They spread, slowly, very gradually. I think it's been going on for a long time." "A long time?" "Thousands of years. I don't think it's new." "Why do you say that?" "When I was a kid, a picture they showed us in Bible League. A religious picture, an old print. The enemy gods, defeated by Jehovah, Moloch, Beelzebub, Moab, Baalin, Ashtaroth. So they were all represented by figures." Lois looked up at the commissioner. Beelzebub was represented as a giant fly. The commissioner grunted. "An old struggle." They've been defeated. The Bible is an account of their defeats. They make gains, but finally they're defeated. Why defeated? They can't get everyone. They didn't get me. And they never got the Hebrews. The Hebrews carried the message to the whole world. The realization of the danger. The 2 men on the bus, I think they understood. Had escaped, like I did. He clenched his fist. I killed one of them. I made a mistake. I was afraid to take a chance. The Commissioner nodded. Yes, they undoubtedly had escaped as you did. Freak accidents, but the rest of the town was firmly in control. He turned from the window. Well, Mr. Loyce, you seem to have figured everything out. Not everything. The hanging man. The dead man hanging from the lamppost. I don't understand that. Why? Why did they deliberately hang him there? That would seem simple. The Commissioner smiled faintly. Bait. Loyce stiffened. His heart stopped beating. Bait? What do you mean? To draw you out. Make you declare yourself, so they'd know who was under control and who had escaped. Loyce recoiled with horror. Then they expected failures. They anticipated. He broke off. They were ready with a trap. And you showed yourself. You reacted. You made yourself known. The Commissioner abruptly moved toward the door. Come along, Loyce. There's a lot to do. We must get moving. There's no time to waste. Loyce started slowly to his feet, numbed. And the man? Who was the man? I never saw him before. He wasn't a local man. He was a stranger, all muddy and dirty, his face cut, slashed. There was a strange look on the Commissioner's face as he answered. Maybe, he said softly, you'll understand that too. Come along with me, Mr. Loyce. He held the door open, his eyes gleaming. Loyce caught a glimpse of the street in front of the police station. Policemen, a platform of some sort, a telephone pole and a rope. Right this way, the Commissioner said, smiling coldly. As the sun set, the Vice President of the Oak Grove Merchants Bank came up out of the vault, threw the heavy time locks, put on his hat and coat, and hurried outside onto the sidewalk. Only a few people were there, hurrying home to dinner. Good night, the guard said, locking the door after him. Good night, Clarence Mason murmured. He started along the street toward his car. He was tired. He had been working all day down in the vault, examining the layout of the safety deposit boxes to see if there was room for another tier. He was glad to be finished. At the corner he halted. The street lights had not yet come on. The street was dim. Everything was vague. He looked around and froze. From the telephone pole in front of the police station, something large and shapeless hung. It moved a little with the wind. What the hell was it? Mason approached it warily. He wanted to get home. He was tired and hungry. He thought of his wife, his kids, a hot meal on the dinner table. But there was something about the dark bundle, something ominous and ugly. The light was bad. He couldn't tell what it was, yet it drew him on, made him move closer for a better look. The shapeless thing made him uneasy. He was frightened by it, frightened and fascinated. And the strange part was that nobody else seemed to notice it.
That vintage tone that you can't forget. It's probably on Reverb.com and still humming with history and memory. Reverb, where the past still plays. Find out more. Check out the show notes. Reverb.com. Back to the show.
Read by Craig Franklin. The Eyes Have It by Philip K. Dick. It was quite by accident I discovered this incredible invasion of Earth by life forms from another planet. As yet, I haven't done anything about it. I can't think of anything to do. I wrote to the government, and they sent back a pamphlet on the repair and maintenance of frame houses. Anyhow, the whole thing is known. I'm not the first to discover it. Maybe it's even under control. I was sitting in my easy chair, idly turning the pages of a paperbacked book someone had left on the bus, when I came across the reference that first put me on the trail. For a moment I didn't respond. It took some time for the full impact to sink in. After I'd comprehended, it seemed odd I hadn't noticed it right away. The reference was clearly to a non-human species of incredible properties, not indigenous to Earth. A species, I hasten to point out, customarily masquerading as ordinary human beings. Their disguise, however, became transparent in the face of the following observations by the author. It was at once obvious the author knew everything, and was taking it in his stride. The line, and I tremble remembering it even now, read, "His eyes slowly roved about the room." Vague chills assailed me. I tried to picture the eyes. Did they roll like dimes? The passage indicated not. They seemed to move through the air, not over the surface. Rather rapidly, apparently. No one in the story was surprised. That's what tipped me off. No sign of amazement at such an outrageous thing. Later, the matter was amplified. His eyes moved from person to person. There it was in a nutshell. The eyes had clearly come apart from the rest of him and were on their own. My heart pounded and my breath choked in my windpipe. I had stumbled on an accidental mention of a totally unfamiliar race. Obviously not terrestrial. Yet, to the characters in the book, it was perfectly natural, which suggested they belonged to the same species. And the author? A slow suspicion burned in my mind. The author was taking it rather too easily in his stride. Evidently, he felt this was quite a usual thing. He made absolutely no attempt to conceal this knowledge. The story continued. Presently, his eyes fastened on Julia. Julia, being a lady, had at least the breeding to feel indignant. She is described as blushing and knitting her brows angrily. At this I sighed with relief. They weren't all non-terrestrials. The narrative continues. Slowly, calmly, his eyes examined every inch of her. Great Scott! But here the girl turned and stomped off, and the matter ended. I lay back in my chair, gasping with horror. My wife and family regarding me in wonder. "What's wrong, dear?" my wife asked. I couldn't tell her. Knowledge like this was too much for the ordinary run-of-the-mill person. I had to keep it to myself. Nothing," I gasped. I leapt up, snatched the book, and hurried out of the room. In the garage, I continued reading. There was more. Trembling, I read the next revealing passage. He put his arms around Julia. Presently, she asked him if he would remove his arm. He immediately did so with a smile. It's not said what was done with the arm after the fellow had removed it. Maybe it was left standing upright in the corner. Maybe it was thrown away. I don't care. In any case, the full meaning was there, staring me right in the face. Here was a race of creatures capable of removing portions of their anatomy at will. Eyes, arms, and maybe more, without batting an eyelash. My knowledge of biology came in handy at this point. Obviously, they were simple beings, unicellular, Some sort of primitive single-celled things. Beings no more developed than starfish. Starfish can do the same thing, you know. I read on, and came to this incredible revelation, tossed off coolly by the author without the faintest tremor. Outside the movie theatre, we split up. Part of us went inside, part over to the cafe for dinner. Binary fission, obviously, splitting in half and forming two entities. Probably each lower half went to the cafe, it being further, and the upper halves to the movies. I read on, hands shaking. I had really stumbled onto something here. My mind was reeled as I made out the passage. I'm afraid there's no doubt about it. Poor Bibney has lost his head again. Which was followed by, and Bob says he has utterly no guts. Yet Bibney got around as well as the next person. The next person, however, was just as strange. He was soon described as totally lacking in brains. There was no doubt of the thing in the next passage. Julia, whom I had thought to be the one normal person, revealed herself as also being an alien life form similar to the rest. Quite deliberately, Julia had given her heart to the young man. It didn't relate what the final disposition of the organ was, but I didn't really care. It was evident Julia had gone right on living in her usual manner, like all the others in the book, without heart, arms, eyes, brains, viscera, dividing up into two when the occasion demanded without a qualm. Thereupon she gave him her hand. I sickened. The rascal now had her hand, as well as her heart. I shudder to think what he's done with them by this time. He took her arm. Not content to wait, he had to start dismantling her on his own. Flushing crimson, I slammed the book shut and leapt to my feet. But not in time to escape one last reference to those carefree bits of anatomy whose travels had originally thrown me on the tracks. Her eyes followed him all the way down the road and across the meadow. I rushed from the garage and back inside the warm house as if the accursed things were following me. My wife and children were playing Monopoly in the kitchen. I joined them and played with frantic fervour, brow feverish, teeth shattering. I'd had enough of the thing. I want to hear no more about it. Let them come on, let them invade Earth. I don't want to get mixed up in it. I have absolutely no stomach for it.
Recording by Graham Walker. The Gun by Philip K. Dick. Nothing moved or stirred. Everything was silent, dead. Only the gun showed signs of life, and the trespassers had wrecked that for all time. The return journey to pick up the treasure would be a cinch, they smiled. The captain peered into the eyepiece of the telescope. He adjusted the focus quickly. It was an atomic fission we saw, all right, he said presently. He sighed and pushed away the eyepiece. Any one of you who wants to look may do so, but it's not a pretty sight. Let me look, Tant the archaeologist said. He bent down to look, squinting. Good Lord! He leaped back violently, knocking against Dahl, the chief navigator. Why did we come all this way then? Dahl asked, looking around at the other men. There's no point even landing. Let's go back at once. Perhaps he's right, the biologist murmured, but I'd like to look for myself if I may. He pushed past Tance and peered into the sight. He saw a vast expanse, an endless surface of grey stretching to the edge of the planet. At first he thought it was water, but after a moment he realised that it was slag, pitted, fused slag, broken only by hills of rock jutting up at intervals. Nothing moved or stirred. Everything was silent, dead. I see, Fomer said, backing away from the eyepiece. Well, I won't find any legumes there. He tried to smile, but his lips stayed unmoved. He stepped away and stood by himself, staring past the others. I wonder what the atmospheric sample will show, Tance said. I think I can guess, the captain answered. Most of the atmosphere is poisoned, but didn't we all expect this? I don't see why we're so surprised. A fission visible as far away as our system must be a terrible thing. He strode off down the corridor, dignified and expressionless. They watched him disappear into the control room. As the captain closed the door, the young woman turned. What did the telescope show? Good or bad? Bad. No life could possibly exist. Atmosphere poisoned, water vaporized, all the land fused. Could they have gone underground? The captain slid back the port window so that the surface of the planet under them was visible. The two of them stared down, silent and disturbed. Mile after mile of unbroken ruin stretched out, blackened slag, pitted and scarred, and occasional heaps of rock. Suddenly Nasha jumped. Look, over there, at the edge. Do you see it? They stared. Something rose up. Not rock, not an accidental formation. It was round, a circle of dots, white pellets on the dead skin of the planet. A city? Buildings of some kind? Please turn the ship, Nasha said excitedly. She pushed her dark hair from her face. Turn the ship and let's see what it is. The ship turned, changing its course. As they came over the white dots, the captain lowered the ship, dropping it down as much as he dared. Piers, he said. Piers of some sort of stone. Perhaps poured artificial stone. The remains of a city. Oh dear, Nasha murmured. How awful. She watched the ruins disappear behind them. In a half circle, the white squares jutted from the slag, chipped and cracked, like broken teeth. There's nothing alive, the captain said at last. I think we'll go right back. I know most of the crew want to. Get the government receiving station on the sender, and tell them what we found, and that we... He staggered. The first atomic shell had struck the ship, spinning it round. The captain fell to the floor, crashing into the control table. Papers and instruments rained down on him. As he started to his feet, the second shell struck. The ceiling cracked open. Struts and girders twisted and bent. The ship shuddered, falling suddenly down, then righting itself as automatic controls took over. The captain lay on the floor by the smashed control board. In the corner, Nasha struggled to free herself from the debris. Outside, the men were already sealing the gaping leaks in the side of the ship, through which the precious air was rushing, dissipating into the void beyond. "Help me!" Droll was shouting. "Fire over here! Wiring ignited!" Two men came running. Tance watched helplessly, his eyeglasses broken and bent. "So there is life here after all," he said, half to himself. "But how could—" "Give us a hand," Foma said, hurrying past. "Give us a hand, we've got to land the ship." It was night. A few stars glinted above them, winking through the drifting silt that blew across the surface of the planet. Dahl peered out, frowning. What a place to be stuck in. He resumed his work, hammering the bent metal hull of the ship back into place. He was wearing a pressure suit. There were still many small leaks, and radioactive particles from the atmosphere had already found their way into the ship. Nasha and Foma were sitting at the table in the control room, pale and solemn, studying the inventory lists. "Low on carbohydrates," Foma said. "We can break down the stored fats if we want to, but..." "I wonder if we could find anything outside." Nasha went back to the window. "How uninviting it looks." She paced back and forth, very slender and small, her face dark with fatigue. "What do you suppose an exploring party would find?" Foma shrugged. "Not much. Maybe a few weeds growing in cracks here and there. Nothing we could use. Anything that would adapt to the environment would be toxic, lethal." Nasha paused, rubbing her cheek. There was a deep scratch there, still red and swollen. "Then how do you explain it?" According to your theory, the inhabitants must have died in their skins, fried like yams. But who fired on us? Somebody detected us, made a decision, aimed a gun, and gauged distance, the captain said feebly from the cot in the corner. He turned towards them. That's the part that worries me. The first shell put us out of commission. The second almost destroyed us. They were well aimed, perfectly aimed. We're not such an easy target. True, Foma nodded. Well, perhaps we'll know the answer before we leave here. What a strange situation. All our reasoning tells us that no life could exist. The whole planet burned dry. The atmosphere itself gone, completely poisoned. The gun that fired the projectile survived, Nasha said. Why not people? It's not the same. Metal doesn't need air to breathe. Metal doesn't get leukemia from radioactive particles. Metal doesn't need food and water. There was silence. A paradox, Nasha said. Anyhow, in the morning I think we should send out a search party, and meanwhile we should keep on trying to get the ship in condition for the trip back. It'll be days before we can take off, Foma said. We should keep every man working here. We can't afford to send out a party. Nasha smiled a little. We'll send you in the first party. Maybe you can discover... What was it you were so interested in? Legumes. Edible legumes. Maybe you can find some of them. Only what? Only watch out. They fired on us once without even knowing who we were or what we came for. Do you suppose that they fought with each other? Perhaps they couldn't imagine anyone being friendly under any circumstances. What a strange evolutionary trait. Interspecies warfare. Fighting within the race. We'll know in the morning, Foma said. Let's get some sleep. The sun came up, chill and austere. The three people, 2 men and a woman, stepped through the port, dropping down on the hard ground below. What a day, Dole said grumpily. I said how glad I'd be to walk on firm ground again, but... Come on, Nasha said. Up beside me. I want to say something to you. Will you excuse us, Tance? Tance nodded gloomily. Dole caught up with Nasha. They walked together, their metal shoes crunching the ground underfoot. Nasha glanced at him. Listen, the captain is dying. No one knows except the 2 of us. By the end of the day period of this planet, he'll be dead. The shock did something to his heart. He was almost 60, you know. Dole nodded. That's bad. I have a great deal of respect for him. You will be captain in his place, of course, since you're vice captain now. No, I prefer to see someone else lead. Perhaps you or Foma. I've been thinking over the situation, and it seems to me that I should declare myself mated to one of you. Whichever of you wants to be captain. Then I could devolve the responsibility. Well, I don't want to be captain. Let Foma do it. Nasha studied him, tall and blonde, striding along beside her in his pressure suit. I'm rather partial to you, she said. We might try it for a time, at least. But do as you like. Look, we're coming to something. They stopped walking, letting Tance catch up. In front of them was some sort of a ruined building. Dole stared around thoughtfully. Do you see? This whole place is a natural bowl, a huge valley. See how the rock formations rise up on all sides, protecting the floor? Maybe some of the great blast was deflected here. They wandered around the ruins, picking up rocks and fragments. I think this was a farm, Tance said, examining a piece of wood. This is part of a tower windmill. Really? Nasha took the stick and turned it over. Interesting. But let's go. We don't have much time. Look, Dole said suddenly. Off there, a long way off. Isn't that something? He pointed. Nasha sucked in her breath. The white stones. What? Nasha looked up at Dole. The white stones, the great broken teeth. We saw them, the captain and I, from the control room. She touched Dole's arm gently. That's where they fired from. I didn't think we had landed so close. What is it? Tance said, coming up to them. I'm almost blind without my glasses. What do you see? The city, where they fired from. Oh. All three of them stood together. Well, let's go, Tan said. There's no telling what we'll find there. Dol frowned at him. Wait. We don't know what we would be getting into. They must have patrols. They probably have seen us already, for that matter. They probably have seen the ship itself, Tan said. They probably know right now where they can find it, where they can blow it up. So what difference does it make whether we get close or not? That's true, Nasha said. If they really want to get us, we haven't a chance. We have no armaments at all. You know that. I have a hand weapon, Dol nodded. Well, let's go on then. I suppose you're right, Tance. But let's stay together, Tance said nervously. Nasha, you're going too fast. Nasha looked back. She laughed. If we expect to get there by nightfall, we must go fast. They reached the outskirts of the city at about the middle of the afternoon. The sun, cold and yellow, hung above them in the colourless sky. Dol stopped at the top of a ridge overlooking the city. Well, there it is, what's left of it. There was not much left. The huge concrete piers which they had noticed were not piers at all, but the ruined foundations of buildings. They had been baked by the searing heat, baked and charred almost to the ground. Nothing else remained, only this irregular circle of white squares, perhaps 4 miles in diameter. Dol spat in disgust. More wasted time. A dead skeleton of a city, that's all. But it was from here that the firing came, Tance murmured. Don't forget that. And by someone with a good eye and a great deal of experience, Nasha added. Let's go. They walked into the city, between the ruined buildings. No one spoke. They walked in silence, listening to the echo of their footsteps. It's macabre, Dol muttered. I've seen ruined cities before, but they died of old age and fatigue. This was killed, seared to death. This city didn't die, it was murdered. I wonder what the city was called, Nasha said. She turned aside, going up the remains of the stairway from one of the foundations. Do you think we might find a signpost? Some kind of plaque? She peered into the ruins. There's nothing there, Dol said impatiently. Come on. Wait. Nasha bent down, touching a concrete stone. There's something inscribed on this. What is it? Tance hurried up. He squatted in the dust, running his gloved fingers over the surface of the stone. Letters all right. He took a writing stick from the pocket of his pressure suit and copied the inscription on a bit of paper. Dol glanced over his shoulder. The inscription was, Franklin Apartments. That's this city, Nasha said softly. That was its name. Tance put the paper in his pocket, and they went on. After a time, Dol said, Nasha, you know, I think we're being watched, but don't look around. The woman stiffened. Oh? Why do you say that? Did you see something? No, I can feel it though. Don't you? Nasha smiled a little. I feel nothing, but perhaps I'm more used to being stared at. She turned her head slightly. Oh! Dol reached for his hand weapon. What is it? What do you see? Tance had stopped dead in his tracks, his mouth half open. The gun, Nasha said. It's the gun. Look at the size of it. The size of the thing. Dol unfastened his hand weapon slowly. That's it, all right. The gun was huge. Stark and immense, it pointed up at the sky. A mass of steel and glass, set in a huge slab of concrete. Even as they watched, the gun moved on its swivel base, whirring underneath. A slim vane turned with the wind, a network of rods atop a high pole. It's alive, Nasha whispered. It's listening to us, watching us. The gun moved again, this time clockwise. It was mounted so that it could make a full circle. The barrel lowered a trifle, then resumed its original position. But who fires it? Tance said. Dol laughed. No one. No one fires it. They stared at him. What do you mean? It fires itself. They couldn't believe him. Nasha came close to him, frowning, looking up at him. I don't understand. What do you mean, it fires itself? Watch, I'll show you. Don't move. Dol picked up a rock from the ground. He hesitated a moment, and then tossed the rock high in the air. The rock passed in front of the gun. Instantly, the great barrel moved, the vanes contracted. The rock fell to the ground. The gun paused, then resumed its calm swivel, its slow circling. You see, Dol said, it noticed the rock as soon as I threw it up in the air. It's alert to anything that flies or moves above the ground level. Probably it detected us as soon as we entered the gravitational field of the planet. It probably had a bead on us from the start. We don't have a chance. It knows all about the ship. It's just waiting for us to take off again. I understand about the rock, Nasha said, nodding. The gun noticed it, but not us, since we're on the ground, not above. It's only designed to combat objects in the sky. The ship is safe until it takes off again. Then the end will come. But what's this gun for? Tance put in. There's no one alive here. Everyone is dead. It's a machine, Dol said. A machine that was made to do a job. And it's doing the job. How it survived the blast, I don't know. On it goes, waiting for the enemy. Probably they came by air in some sort of projectiles. The enemy, Nasha said. Their own race. It's hard to believe that they really bombed themselves, fired at themselves. Well, it's over with, except right here, where we're standing. This one gun, still alert, ready to kill. It'll go on until it wears out. And by that time, we'll be dead, Nasha said bitterly. There must have been hundreds of guns like this, Dol murmured. They must have been used to the sight. Guns, weapons, uniforms. Probably they accepted it as a natural thing. Part of their lives. Like eating and sleeping. An institution like the church and the state. Men trained to fight, to lead armies, a regular profession, honoured and respected. Tance was walking slowly toward the gun, peering nearsightedly up at it. Quite complex, isn't it? All those vanes and tubes? I suppose this is some sort of a telescopic sight. His gloved hand touched the end of the long tube. Instantly the gun shifted, the barrel retracting. It swung. Don't move, Dol cried. The barrel swung past them as they stood, rigid and still. For one terrible moment it hesitated over their heads, clicking and whirring, settling into position. Then the sounds died out, and the gun became silent. Tance smiled foolishly inside his helmet. I must have put my finger over the lens. I'll be more careful. He made his way up onto the circular slab, stepping gingerly behind the body of the gun. He disappeared from view. Where did he go? Nasha said irritably. He'll get us all killed. Tance, come back, Dol shouted. What's the matter with you? In a minute. There was a long silence. At last the archaeologist appeared. I think I've found something. Come up and I'll show you. What is it? Dol, you said the gun was here to keep the enemy off. I think I know why they wanted to keep the enemy off. They were puzzled. I think I found what the gun is supposed to guard. Come and give me a hand. All right, Dol said abruptly. Let's go. He seized Nasha's hands. Come on, let's see what he's found. I thought that something like this might happen when I saw that the gun was... Like what? Nasha pulled away her hand. What are you talking about? You act as if you knew what he's found. I do, Dol smiled down at her. Do you remember the legend that all races have? The myth of the buried treasure, and the dragon, the serpent that watches it, guards it, keeping everyone away. She nodded. Well? Dol pointed up at the gun. That, he said, is the dragon. Come on. Between the three of them, they managed to pull up the steel cover and lay it on one side. Dol was wet with perspiration when they finished. It isn't worth it, he grunted. He stared into the dark, yawning hole. Or is it? Nasha clicked on her headlamp, shining the beam down the stairs. The steps were thick with dust and rubble. At the bottom was a steel door. "Come on," Tant said excitedly. He started down the stairs. They watched him reach the door and pull hopefully on it without success. "Give a hand?" "All right." They came gingerly after him. Dahl examined the door. It was bolted shut, locked. There was an inscription on the door, but he could not read it. "Now what?" Nasha said. Dahl took out his hand weapon. "Stand back. I can't think of any other way." He pressed the switch. The bottom of the door glowed red. Presently it began to crumble. Dahl clicked the weapon off. "I think we can get through. Let's try." The door came apart easily. In a few minutes they had carried it away in pieces and stacked the pieces on the first step. They went on, flashing the light ahead of them. They were in a vault. Dust lay everywhere, on everything, inches thick. Wood crates lined the walls. Huge boxes and crates, packages and containers. Tant looked around, curiously, his eyes bright. "What exactly are all these?" he murmured. "Something valuable, I would think." He picked up a round drum and opened it. A spool fell to the floor, unwinding a black ribbon. He examined it, holding it up to the light. "Look at this." They came around him. "Pictures," Nasha said. "Tiny pictures." "Records of some kind." Tant closed the spool up in the drum again. "Look, hundreds of drums." He flashed the light around. "All those crates, let's open one." Dahl was already prying at the wood. The wood had turned brittle and dry. He managed to pull a section away. It was a picture. A boy in a blue garment, smiling pleasantly, staring ahead, young and handsome. He seemed almost alive, ready to move toward them in the light of the headlamp. It was one of them, one of the ruined race, the race that had perished. For a long time they stared at the picture. At last Dahl replaced the board. "All these other crates," Nasha said. "More pictures, and these drums. What are in the boxes?" "This is their treasure," Tant said, almost to himself. "Here are their pictures, their records. Probably all their literature is in here. Their stories, their myths, their ideas about the universe." "And their history," Nasha said. "We'll be able to trace their development and find out what it was that made them become what they were." Dahl was wandering around the vault. "Odd," he murmured. Even at the end, even after they had begun to fight, they still knew, someplace down inside them, that their real treasure was this, their books and pictures, their myths. Even after their big cities and buildings and industries were destroyed, they probably hoped to come back and find this, after everything else was gone. "When we get back home, we can agitate for a mission to come here," Tant said. "All this can be loaded up and taken back. We'll be leaving about—" He stopped. "Yes," Dahl said dryly. "We'll be leaving in about 3 day periods from now. We'll fix the ship, then take off. Soon we'll be at home. That is, if nothing happens, like being shot down by that." "Oh, stop it," Nasha said impatiently. "Leave him alone. He's right. All this must be taken back home, sooner or later. We'll have to solve the problem of the gun. We have no choice." Dahl nodded. "What's your solution then? As soon as we leave the ground, we'll be shot down." His face twisted bitterly. "They've guarded their treasures too well. Instead of being preserved, it will lie here until it rots. It serves them right." "How?" "Don't you see? This was the only way they knew. Building a gun and setting out to shoot anything that came along. They were so certain that everything was hostile, the enemy coming to take their possessions away from them. Well, they can keep them." Nasha was deep in thought, her mind far away. Suddenly she gasped. "Dahl," she said, "what's the matter with us? We have no problem. The gun is no menace at all." The two men stared at her. "No menace," Dahl said. "It's already shot us down once, and as soon as we take off again—" "Don't you see?" Nasha began to laugh. "The poor foolish gun. It's completely harmless. Even I could deal with it alone. You?" Her eyes were flashing. "With a crowbar, with a hammer, or a stick of wood? Let's go back to the ship and load up. Of course we're at its mercy in the air. That's the way it was made. It can fire into the sky, Shoot down anything that flies. But that's all. Against something on the ground, it has no defences. Isn't that right?" Dahl nodded slowly. "The soft underbelly of the dragon. In the legend, the dragon's armour doesn't cover its stomach." He began to laugh. "That's right. That's perfectly right." "Let's go then," Nasha said. "Let's get back to the ship. We have work to do here." It was early the next morning when they reached the ship. During the night, the captain had died, and the crew had ignited his body according to custom. They had stood solemnly around it until the last ember died. As they were going back to their work, the woman and the 2 men appeared, dirty and tired, still excited. And presently, from the ship, a line of people came, each carrying something in his hands. The line marched across the grey slag, the eternal expanse of fused metal. When they reached the weapon, they all fell on the gun at once, with crowbars, hammers, anything that was heavy and hard. The telescopic sights shattered into bits. The wiring was pulled out, torn to shreds. The delicate gears were smashed, dented. Finally, the warheads themselves were carried off and the firing pins removed. The gun was smashed, the great weapon destroyed. The people went down into the vault and examined the treasure. With its metal-armoured guardian dead, there was no danger any longer. They studied the pictures, the films, the crates of books, the jewelled crowns, the cups, the statues. At last, as the sun was dipping into the grey mists that drifted across the planet, they came back up the stairs again. For a moment they stood around the wrecked gun, looking at the unmoving outline of it. Then they started back to the ship. There was still much work to be done. The ship had been badly hurt. Much had been damaged and lost. The important thing was to repair it as quickly as possible, to get it into the air. With all of them working together, it took just 5 more days to make it spaceworthy. Nasha stood in the control room, watching the planet fall away behind them. She folded her arms, sitting down on the edge of the table. "What are you thinking?" Dahl said. Nothing. Are you sure?" "I was thinking that there must have been a time when this planet was quite different, when there was life on it." "I suppose there was. It's unfortunate that no ships from our system came this far, but then we had no reason to suspect intelligent life until we saw the fission glow in the sky. And then it was too late." "Not quite too late. After all, their possessions, their music, books, their pictures, all of that will survive. We'll take them home and study them, and they'll change us. We won't be the same afterwards. Their sculpturing especially. Did you see the one of the great winged creature, without a head or arms? Broken off, I suppose. But those wings, it looked very old. It will change us a great deal. When we come back, we won't find the gun waiting for us," Nasha said. "Next time, it won't be there to shoot us down. We can land and take the treasure, as you call it." She smiled up at Dahl. "You'll lead us back there, as a good captain should." "Captain," Dahl grinned. "Then you've decided." Nasha shrugged. "Fomer argues with me too much, I think. All in all, I really prefer you." "Then let's go," Dahl said. "Let's go back home." The ship roared up, flying over the ruins of the city. It turned in a huge arc and then shot off beyond the horizon, heading into outer space. Down below, in the centre of the ruined city, a single half-broken detector vane moved slightly, catching the roar of the ship. The base of the great gun throbbed painfully, straining to turn. After a moment, a red warning light flashed on down inside its destroyed works. And a long way off, 100 miles from the city, another warning light flashed on, far underground. Automatic relays flew into action, gears turned, belts whined. On the ground, above a section of metal slag slipped back. A ramp appeared. A moment later, a small cart rushed to the surface. The cart turned toward the city. A second cart appeared behind it. It was loaded with wiring cables. Behind it, a third cart came, loaded with telescopic tube sights, and behind came more carts, some with relays, some with firing controls, some with tools and parts, screws and bolts, pins and nuts. The final one contained atomic warheads. The carts lined up behind the first one, the lead cart. The lead cart started off across the frozen ground, bumping calmly along, followed by the others, moving toward the city, to the damaged gun.
Welcome to Innsmouth, stranger.
Hi, I'm Rob Whiten from the Innsmouth Book Club. Join me and my fellow guide John Chadwick as we take you on a fortnightly tour of Innsmouth. We visit places such as the Picture House, the Library and Innsmouth Museum to discuss all aspects of weird fiction, whether it be book, film, music, TV or art. As well as that, we stop over at the Gilman House to have a chat with a resident guest. That includes authors, artists, musicians, in fact Lovecraftian creatives of all types. You can find our free shows on Patreon, and there you can also sign up as a patron, which brings you bonus content, plus a monthly PDF copy of Innsmouth News, which features articles, author spotlights, all the latest news and reviews, and more. You can find us at patreon.com/InnsmouthBC. We hope to see you soon, because remember, Innsmouth isn't just a place, it's a state of mind.
Check out the show notes or go to pgttcm.com for more information. And also check us out on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and all the other places where podcast stuff exists. All right, back to the show.
In Legacy Door, a lurker from space casts a shadow over time.
We opened our eyes upon the human world. We found ourselves lying on an especially yielding bed in a room displaying scattered relics of their shallow past, tied together by more recently produced items meant to blend with the relics. Typical.
A sensitive journalist dreams of unknown lives.
It seems like every time I close my eyes, they get stronger. I can't even say the last time I had a normal sleep, let alone a dreamless one.
An outspoken lawyer defends the suspect in an unspeakable crime.
And that client was Jonathan Strauss, held for the murder of his daughter Abigail and her companion Harrison Reese.
And a stalwart investigator tries to drag it all into the light.
Some of the Reeses and the Strausses have been involved with something that seems to include an obsession with bloodlines and longevity for at least decades.
Legacy Door is a weekly cosmic horror mystery podcast. An ensemble of actors tell a story, also available in paperback, Kindle, and audiobook. Available now.